Do you ever have a project that you're going to finish up in just a few weeks and it ends up taking close to a year? Let me show you Exhibit A. Though it's taken forever, this has turned into a beautiful piece. This was a storage chest that my grandfather built probably 60 plus years ago when he was my age. And on this storage chest, it has just some beautiful, simple joinery that he did back then with just basic tools. And I'd love to show them closer to you, but before we do that, let's rewind time a little bit and you watch from the very beginning when this thing was a dirt and just cobweb covered box. And I'll meet you back here after putting these hinges on. So here, okay. Woo! Today's the day. Today we're going to get to work on a fun project. It's sadly seen much better days where it has dirt and filth has all been packed into it. We're going to need to sand it down, restain, clear coat it, bring it back to life. So let's get started on it with a good sanding. That thing definitely has some grime on it after sitting in the barn for so many years. Fun little fact, this screwdriver I'm using was actually one of the very first tools I got from my grandpa when I was about 8 or 9. And, Granny said that he went down the store aisle looking over everything, hand picking each one of these. So it's kind of neat to see some of my first tools getting to help restore some of the things he first built. So let's get back to going on this project and making it look good again. We've got the box sanded. Let me show you over here what we got going with the lid. It's definitely carried the brunt of the stains and all that, where that's where all the dirt and grime is collected over the years. But also, as you can see here on this front piece, it has got a big gap going in. So I'm going to take this front trim piece off and we're going to try to push this around and glue it back in place. So we got the pieces all glued up. That tongue and groove just had one of the groove pieces actually broke off of it is what it was. So we glued that back on. Hopefully it'll hold. We chipped off a little piece on this trim that you see we're going to glue up. Letting it set. So we'll be able to nail it back in tomorrow, as well as finish up sanding and start the staining process. So that's all for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, looks like it's glued up pretty well this evening. We're going to work on getting that put back together, sand it down, and we'll see if we get to the stain tonight or that might be tomorrow's project. So it's sanded down, the character and the rustic charm of it. It's got, say, a lot of stains and scratches on it, and that's just the history that it's been through. So we're not gonna sand it all the way smooth. We are gonna use a darker stain to help blend all that stuff in to give it a more uniform appearance. For right now, this is that front piece we've glued up last night. We're gonna glue it onto the rest of the tongue and groove boards. So we've got that set up. Got my clamps ready over here. So let's get the glue going on it and we'll get this piece mated back up with its friends. So. We're alternating these up and down. And that, if you put them all on one side, it'll start curling your boards where This one's pulling it this way and this one's pulling it back, so it evens everything out. One more. Let that sit overnight and let the glue set up. And then hopefully tomorrow we'll have that going. We'll put this front trim piece back on. And then we can hopefully do a last little touch-up sanding, and then we can start actually doing the staining process. We did come up with some mystery stains somewhere over the past couple days since we've last been here. As you can see, here is the very obvious wet area. And if you feel it, you can tell there's some moisture there. And then if we look down here on the actual cabinet, we got a spot there, which makes me think that maybe it's actually coming out of the wood once we sanded it. A little bit down on that edge. We're going to resand these spots. Hopefully they don't show back up, because that will definitely show through the stain. And we'll go from there. Well, it is definitely acting like wet wood where it's not sanding down smooth. Don't know if that's coming, say, from the center of the wood or coming from just the humidity in the air collecting on those spots for some reason. But we'll, like say, give it a few days. That'll dry out, and then we can actually sand it smooth and start the staining process. So until then, hold tight and we'll get back to this project soon. Well guys, we are back in the shop today and was able to see that mystery stain and watch it slowly change over time. It rained and we checked and the roof's not leaking, so we're thinking that stain came up from the wood. When we started sanding it, it must have opened the pores, is our only guess. Thankfully it has faded. So for the finish, we're going to be using some Minwax red mahogany stain. I've used this on other projects, as you can tell from the drips on it, and it has turned out really well. In addition, before the stain, we're going to be putting on a pre-stain wood conditioner. This will prepare the pores of the wood so that hopefully it will let this stain soak in at a more even rate, and it'll all kind of blend into one uniform color. So let's get going. Okay, so we got the first section done here. You see here is the stained versus the pre-conditioned versus the bare wood, where you can kind of see the progression of it. I really like how this dark is really bringing out the different grain lines and just features of the wood. We'll finish this section of the deal as well as doing the bottom part of the lid. We're going to let it dry, flip everything over, and then we'll start on the inside and then work our way around, where the rest of this should just be a... Welcome back. So we started out staining this and clear coating it by hand, but we soon realized that that was going to take a long time and not put as good a coat on. So instead I got my brother to help me carry this up the stairs to this paint room here. We sprayed it. It put on a much thicker, cleaner coat. We did a heavy sprays, and that spray gun makes it just a smoother finish. So I'm glad we carried it up here. We'll see about when we try to carry it down the stairs if I'm still glad. But I think I will be. Just need a little extra help on that. I've got the hinges on. It took a little bit of persuasion on a couple of these where this wood is chipped in spots, but we have brass hinges, so I took a hammer and chisel and we kind of just bent and shaped them into the profile of the wood. So they looked real good. Opens up nice and easy. Let's get inside here and I'm going to show you some of that joinery that I was talking about that he worked on so good. Let's start with the front. There is a beautifully worn keyhole. Sadly, it doesn't function anymore, but you can see there it was an actual brass mechanism that would lock with the lid. Now all this wood is tongue and groove, and it makes it where it's very dust proof. Well, the corners, they're made with just simple 2x4s, and they go all the way through the floor and they hit the actual ground or floor of what it's sitting on. So all the weight is sitting right on those 2x4s. It's not actually pushing into the floor of the cabinet. So that's a great detail. And here, let me get you closer over here to the joints here in the corners. And these are just great little deals, because what that is, those are just 90-degree cuts. and then it just pieces together and it finishes off that trim piece. So very simplistic, but still just has a nice, beautiful, clean finish to it. Very sturdy. You see there's this center piece of this lid, so it doesn't sag, it is centered over this brace. It'll close and sit on top of that where it's cut short, and that holds it from the middle of the lid sagging if someone sits on it or something heavy. So just a smart, easy little fix that he did there to help make it more sturdy. And one last thing, here we're on the back side. If you just look at just the simple spacing of his nail holes, every board is near identical on their spacing. Meaning he didn't just grab nails and drive them in. He measured each one of those to make it a beautiful piece. Well, project complete. It was a bit of a long one, but we got her done. From the scraping of the dirt and grime off the lid, to vacuuming out all of the dust from the cracks, to that mystery stain that appeared and was trying to figure out how in the world do we cover this up. But it turned out to be a beautiful family heirloom piece. One that we're going to get to pass down from generation to generation. So thank you for joining us on this here journey, and be sure and catch us on our next project.